The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is August 25th, 2024, and today we are once again going to take a look at the situation within Ukraine and also the situation within Western Russia too. So anyway, let's get to the front. Now, first of all, I have heard some questionable rumors about an Armed Forces of Ukraine buildup in the Zaporozhye Oblast. Apparently, Syrskyi is gearing up for another WoW offensive in the Zaporozhye direction. This man doesn't quit, does he? Now, personally, my biggest problem with him doing this is that not only is everything south here all well defended, but another counteroffensive in the Zaporozhye direction would be just too predictable. Literally, the Russians know exactly where these guys are going to be. Zaporozhye Oblast is mostly flat farmlands, and also they kind of already tried this direction last summer, and it didn't work. It was a complete failure. But otherwise, though, these rumors don't really have a lot of merit to them, and despite what some Russian Milo bloggers have been saying on Telegram, who are doomers, by the way, for their side, I don't really see any major evidence to support their claims of such offensive taking place. Maybe I'll be wrong in next month, next month, that is, in September, and I'll be completely wrong here. But as of right now, there's no evidence to suggest that it's going to happen, and if that were the case, that would be a little too obvious for Russia to know about, okay? And besides, if we know about it, then so do the Russians. Anyway, nothing going on in the Velika Novosilka direction, so we can skip that. Now, in the Ugledar direction, we got a lot of interesting news here, okay? So, first of all, a lot of what you're seeing here on screen is outdated already, and it's probably going to get changed in a significant way very soon. So, probably by the time you watch this video, it's already going to be outdated, and the map will have already changed once again. And the reason why that is based on what other mappers have been saying. It's that a huge chunk of the 00532 road is now under the control of the Russian army. They now control most of everything up to Konstantinivka, which is the smaller one north of Ugledar, not the big one near Kramatorsk. And also, it has been reported via some other mappers that half of the town of Konstantinivka is under Russian control, and more of the 0532 road coming from Mariinka to Ugledar once again is coming under Russian control. And I'm not going to be surprised if within the next weeks or so that Konstantinivka falls to Russia, because it almost seems as if the big defended fortifications, like highly fortified areas within this direction of the front, were all in NOVOGRODIVKA. And after this town fell, it seemed quite obvious that the Ukrainians were not going to have as good of a time in Konstantinivka when compared to NOVOGRODIVKA. And also, Pereskovivka has easily fallen too. So it didn't help there as well. But yeah, half of Konstantinivka is basically now under Russian control, along with this road here that eventually goes up to Ugledar. I'm also hearing word on the street that the Russians have also captured the strategic fortifications here. As you can see, it's easily visible on the Google satellite imagery, which is one of the key defenses for Ugledar. And apparently this has fallen to Russian control. And with that being said, the battle for Vudain is going to begin very soon. And because of how low, and flat this area is, I wouldn't be shocked if the Russians were to take control of this town within weeks, if not 1 month at most. But yeah, after this, they're definitely going to go to the coal mine here, which defends Ugledar, and then we're going to finally see the final push into Ugledar itself. Though, in my opinion, by then, I don't think the armed forces of Ukraine are going to put up a fight here. They're probably just going to run away, probably all the way back to Velika Novosilka, if not completely evacuate this entirety of the central or south-central Donetsk Oblast. I don't think they're going to be here for much longer. Not only because of Ugledar potentially about to fall apart, but because everything here is a potential sitting duck for Russia, okay? Now, to get to other fronts, let's first of all talk about Kursk, okay? Now, as all of you know by now, it's been a few weeks or so since the Ukrainians started their invasion of Kursk Oblast in western Russia. And at first, the Ukrainians were making some pretty decently sized gains. But now, it seems as if the front, for the most part, has seemed to have stabilized, except for, I guess, the western and northern areas. But basically, everything else, though, for the most part, seems to have been stabilized by the Russians, and it is now reported through reliable sources that the Russians have begun their counteroffensive to retake control over the areas in Kursk that they have lost to Ukraine in early August. So, to first start off, the Russians have cleared the Ukrainians out of the outskirts of Giri, and they have also kicked them out of 4 or 5 settlements here: Kimishune, Krupets, Spalnoe, and just recently Borki. I've also heard some reports that the Russians have also begun an operation to also recapture the village of Plikovo, which would then put them back at the border with Sumy Oblast in eastern Ukraine. And also, in addition, the Russians have also retaken, reportedly, let's see, where is it on the map here? Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Nichaev. Nichaev has also been recaptured by Russia, and the Russians at the moment are also fighting tooth and nail for Malia Lakhnia. Ukrainians have claimed that they have captured it, while the Russians say otherwise. But we will tell for sure in the next few days or not if they really control it or not. Also, now despite what Syriac puts up here, there is reports that the Russians are retaking control over the village of Olgovka, which means that these 3 villages here, Mativka, Zebelovka, and Dorovka, are all back under Russian control. The southern portion of Korinovo is also back under Russian control. Snagost was recently recaptured by the Ukrainians, so it's it went sort of back and forth. And also, the last thing I will say about the Kursk direction is that the Ukrainians have been working hard to blow up all the bridges on this river here, the Reka Sim, to not only either trap the Russians, but also to force them to withdraw from this area. So they want to form some sort of a cranky, small bridgehead here, so that they can occupy it. I don't know. But yeah, for the most part, though, it seems that the Ukrainian offensive in Kursk has not only stabilized, but it looks like the beginning of the end of their adventure has started. The Russians are retaking land mostly in the southern portion of Ukrainian-occupied Kursk, and it seems as if the Russians are also beginning to advance also further west. Now, I don't know how long it will be before they reach Suja again. Probably not for another month or so. Or, I don't know, maybe it'll be quick because of the situation in Donetsk Oblast. But all I can say right now is that the Ukrainians' momentum in Kursk has ran out of gas. Well, especially in the southern direction, as I said just a moment ago. And I just cannot see them sustaining this offensive any much longer. And if they were to double down on the Kursk direction, I think they'd be making a fatal mistake. Which leads me to Donetsk itself. Not the Ugledar direction within Donetsk, but literally the main parts of Donetsk, all right? Like the most important parts. So, first of all, let's start with Chazov Yar. Now, here's the strange thing about the Chazov Yar front, okay? Chazov Yar has sort of like become forgotten. The forgotten front. Remember, like, months ago, like, during, like, early summer of 2024, everybody was talking about Chazov Yar. Everybody was talking about how important it was for Russia, for Ukraine. People were documenting every single moment of the battle, but then it just stopped. Like, people stopped caring about it. Either the battle went too slow, or, I don't know, maybe because of other fronts cracking. But yeah, so anyway, as you can see here, the Russians have not only been able to successfully cross the Sovetski Donetsk-Donbass Canal, but they have also established control over a significant portion over northeastern Chazov Yar. Or should I say, like, maybe a little, like, further east? Or, I don't know, like, further. I mean, it's a little more westward, but this would be considered northeastern Chazov Yar. So maybe we can call this just simply East Chazov Yar, like central eastern Chazov Yar. But anyway, that's not the point. But apparently the Russians have gained more control over eastern Chazov Yar, and it will not shock me if in the very future that they enter southeastern Chazov Yar. Now, in my honest opinion, I don't think the battle for these parts of Chazov Yar are going to be that difficult for Russia, because mainly not only are they pretty forested, but also the fact is they're like sort of like flat, like low-rise houses. I mean, there's just nowhere for the Ukrainians to really hide in except the central part of the town itself. Now, if you ask me, I do predict by somewhere maybe in mid-September, if not like maybe the late part of September, the Russians will take the entirety of eastern Chazov Yar right here. But yeah, this front has been significantly forgotten by both Russian and Ukrainian millibloggers, to the point now where it's becoming like, I don't know, I feel like by the time anybody gives this place any attention again, it will be already too little too late to do anything about it. Well, this goes more for the Ukrainians than the Russians, because the fact that the Russians have been able to advance this far within Chazov Yar itself is not only bad news for the Ukrainians, but it also is good news for the Russians, because it means that they don't need to dedicate that many resources there. If they continue to advance in the way they have been doing, despite the fact that, I don't know, Chazov Yar is so difficult to fight for, then you might as well just keep going. Especially with the news coming out of New York, Turets, and the Pokrovsk fronts. Speaking of which, let's get to the Turets front, shall we? So, oh boy, we got a lot to talk about here. So, some parts of this map are already outdated. I mean, the Russians are going very fast in Turets, by the way. It's unbelievable. But yeah, the Russians, for the most part, have completed the capture of Pivnichne and all of the Turets suburbs here, including New York. And also, this is the big news of them all. The Russians have not only broken into Turets city proper, but they have easily taken control over all of the eastern Turets commie blocks, or citadel, as some people would prefer to call it by. And as far as I'm concerned, Divjin, or Soviet General Staff, has already colored some parts of the low-rise areas here as a gray zone. So that means the Russians are advancing very fast into Turets, and it looks like they're going to try to do a blitzkrieg on these commie blocks here in the central part of the city. Now, if Turets Central, along with these hilly waste heaps, were to be easily be taken by Russia in the way a certain other part of the Donetsk front like has fallen, like basically, you know, like how like quickly these waste heaps would fall, right? But here's the thing, if Russians were to take the central part of Turets along with its adjacent waste heaps, the battle for Turets is already over. But you know what? I'm going to already declare it a victory for Russia, even though it's a little premature for me to say, because these two waist heaps here, which are 260 meters high and 290 meters high, along with the citadel here, are already all under Russian control. In addition to that, along with the suburbs of Toretsk, along with New York, I just cannot see the armed forces of Ukraine putting up literally a tough fight for long. I do believe they're either going to have to withdraw from the city of Toretsk, or they're going to settle in for a little meat grinder that could take place for the next few months or so. But the fact that the Russians are advancing at this speed in Toretsk is not good news for the Ukrainians. It is not. And it just shows how badly defended some of the cities in Donbass are. And it also just shows that the Russians have gotten better in their, offensive tactics. It really shows that they have been getting better. So, before we get to the elephant in the room, we need to talk about the Krasnogorivka direction. Now, Krasnogorivka, as all of you know, is, like, the proper part of Krasnogorivka is under Russian control already, with the exception of maybe some outskirts, like in the very northern part of the town. It's literally under Russian control now, like the town proper, along with the central Rada. All of its strategic parts have already all fallen to Russia. But now, here comes the big question. How will Russia take all these fields up north? How will they clear everything? Well, we're about to get into that right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Pokrovsk front. The most important front right now in all of Ukraine. It all began with the fall of Avdiivka in late February 2024, and then a flower bloomed right after that, just 2 months later, from OCHERETYNE. Since then, the Russians have basically steamrolled their way across central Donetsk Oblast and are now only 9 kilometers away from both Pokrovsk and Myonograd. Pokrovsk and Myonograd are literally now within striking distance for the Russians, and as far as I'm concerned, Krasny Yar, despite what you're seeing on this map here, has already reportedly fallen to Russia. The waist heap here is also about to fall to Russia, and the town of Grodivka is also about to fall to Russia too. I even heard some rumors that the Ukrainians have already withdrawn their forces back to Myonograd because the defenses in Grodivka are not too good. Now, if you think that's bad, you guys don't know. NOVOGRODIVKA. Oh my. Would you look at that? Already within a few days of the start of the battle for NOVOGRODIVKA, the Russians have already captured most of the strategic parts of the town. Now, again, pardon the outdated look of the map here, but by now, the Rada has fallen to the Russians, and as far as maps are concerned, everything here is all under Russian control, including the central part, and the only part where the Ukrainians still have any sort of presence left is like the northern outskirts of NOVOGRODIVKA. So, NOVOGRODIVKA, for the most part, has fallen almost without any resistance to the Russian onslaught. Almost without any resistance. And I have also heard that the Russians are advancing on the village of Mariinivka, and are also contesting hard right now for the waste heap just east of Seladove, like one of these two waste heaps here. But here's the thing. If NOVOGRODIVKA falls, like completely falls, within days or so, along with these waste heaps, the battle for Seladove is already over before it even started. Seladove is cooked. DOA, dead on arrival. There's not going to be much of a battle in Seladove. And this is bad because if Seladove falls, a major portion of the E50 road, which goes from Dnipropetrovsk, Ukraine, all the way up to Donetsk, will be under Russian control. And also, the fall of Seladobe would also result in more urban areas of Donetsk Oblast being endangered. Ukrainsk, Hyrynsk, Kharkivka, and Kharkove. They will all easily get steamrolled by the Russians if Seladobe falls. And besides, even though these guys, terrain-wise, may look tough on paper, here's a problem. If you lose Seladobe and the E50 road, it becomes a lot harder to support these towns. So the Ukrainians are going to have to make a choice. Do they want to remain in this part here of Donetsk Oblast, or are they just going to hand it over to the Russians without a fight while saving their lives? It's a major decision for Syrskyi and Zelensky to make, because if they were to stay there and fight, they will lose a lot of guys. And this comes just as the Russians are about to get close to their logistical hub of Pokrovsk. So if these guys decide to stay here and fight, a lot of them are going to die. They're not going to come out of this thing alive at all. But if they were to leave, it will be a major PR disaster for Zelensky, knowing how much land they'd be giving away to the Russians. It would be. And also, basically, the entirety of the south-central Donetsk Oblast will be under Russian control, especially after the fall of Kharkove, Ugledar, Velika Novosilka, etc. So, with that being said, the Russians are nearing Pokrovsk, and the way I see things now, and based on the pace of their advance, I'm not going to be surprised if somewhere in either September or October, like maybe before Halloween, we will see the start for the Battle of Pokrovsk. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take. For all I know, it could go the same way as NOVOGRODIVKA and OCHERETYNE, or they could put up another meat grinder, like in Artemovsk. But the way I see things now, things long-term do not look good for the Ukrainians, and despite their best efforts in Kursk, I personally think they not only wasted their time, money, resources, and lives up there, but they have further given the Russians a reason to invade even more parts of Ukraine, and not just the 4 oblasts that they're claiming territorial sovereignty to, but it's very likely, as I said in my previous video, the Russians are going to enter Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, and maybe perhaps they will double down on Sumy and Kharkiv in 2025. That's honestly how I see it. So, but yeah, anyway, so that's all I got to say for today's video, guys. So tell me in the comment section below what you think of the recent news in Ukraine and in Russia too. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention. This is sort of the bonus news that I want to share with you guys. I just got reports that the CEO of Telegram, Pavel Durov, was arrested by the French authorities for the content that was posted on Telegram. Now, for those of you who use Telegram a lot and are scared about this, don't worry. Telegram is just fine, working perfectly. Don't panic. But yeah, he's been arrested in regards partly to what was posted on Telegram, and I guess for other like criminal charges too that are not related to Telegram and such. And as far as I know at the moment, the Russians are trying to get him out, though I don't think it's likely they're going to be successful in doing so because the guy has French citizenship, which makes him pretty much liable to French law. And yeah, I think he's cooked, which is very unfortunate for Telegram, VK, and the Russian tech world. So yeah, but anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed my video. I hope you found it entertaining, informative, and leave a comment below and like the video if you can. So I hope to see you guys all next time, and I'll see you later. Take care and peace out.